Welcome back to Go Figure. Today we are on lesson 48 of Saxon Algebra Half, fractional part of a number and fractional equations. Here's a quick warm-up problem. Go ahead and solve for y and then pause the video and then press play when you're ready to check your answer. Okay, 2/3 of y equals 1/5. Remember that when we are solving equations with fractions, we can multiply by the reciprocal to cancel out the fraction and leave our variable on its own. So here we would multiply by 3/2, which is the reciprocal of 2/3. And what we do to one side of our equation, we need to do to the other. So we're going to multiply the right side of our equation by 3/2. And then on the left side here, these fractions cancel out and we're left with y equals 3/10. And if you need a refresher at all with multiplying by the reciprocal, you can go back to lesson 40. And it will come in handy with our lesson today. Our learning objectives today are to illustrate the fractional part of a number and to translate and solve fractional equations. So here I have a picture of a whole thing that is the number 1. And we can take this whole rectangle and divide it into 7 equal parts so that each one is 1/7. And you see that the shaded region represents 2/7 of the whole thing. So that is what we visually can see when we're looking at fractions. Now, if the whole thing represented 350, we can still divide that whole rectangle into 7 equal parts. And if we did that, each part would represent 50. And then 2/7 of that 350 would be 50 plus 50, 100. So 2/7 of 350 would equal 100. So here's what that equation looks like when we write it out. 2/7 times 350 equals 100. And we would read that as 2/7 it represents the multiplication. 350 represents the equal sign, 100. So the general pattern for fractional equations or equations that contain fractions is a fraction of a number is another number. So you can see this literally, a fraction represented by this f of is our multiplication sign, a number is a, the word is an equal sign, and another number is b. So these are the parts of our fractional equation. So when we have problems with fractional equations, we just need to plug in the numbers that we know to solve for the unknown. So let's look at a few examples. So here the question is, what fraction of 90 is 45? So thinking about our general pattern, we're going to plug in what we know. So first we have what fraction. That's the part that we don't know. So we're just going to put an F because we don't know what the fraction is. What fraction of, there's our multiplication sign, 90, that's our number. Then we have the word is, which is equal, and then 45. So notice how when we substituted in the things that we knew, we're left with one variable, and we can then go ahead and solve for that variable. So to get f here by itself on one side of the equation, instead of multiplying by 90, we need to divide by 90 to cancel that out. So if we divide by 90 on the left side of our equation, we also need to divide by 90 on the right side of our equation. So that way our 90s cancel out here, and we're left with f equals 45 over 90 reduces to 1/2. So there f equals 1/2. Our fraction is 1/2. 1/2 of 90 is 45 if we substitute that back in. Here's another example. 3/8 of what number is 4/3? So let's plug in the things we know. 3/8, there's our fraction. 3/8 of, the word of means multiply. What number? There's our unknown, what number? So we're going to put in a variable here. We'll put in a. Is, there's our equal sign, and then 4/3. So again, notice how we have two known pieces of this equation and one unknown. And to solve, we can multiply by the reciprocal of 3/8 to get our variable by itself. So I'm going to put a multiplication sign there and do 8/3. There's our reciprocal. And what we do to one side, we need to do to the other. So we're going to multiply over here by 8/3. And then these will cancel out. We're left with a equals, and now we need to multiply our fractions. There's no cancellation that we can do, so 4 times 8 is 32, and 3 times 3 is 9. So a equals 32/9. So if we plug that back into our original equation, 3/8 of 32/9 is 4/3. Next example, 7/9 of 3/4 is what number? So let's plug in the things that we know. 7/9 of means multiply. 3/4 is, there's our equal sign. What number? There's a thing that we don't know we're trying to solve for. So we'll put a variable in there, b. And now we just have simple multiplication over here. There looks like there is cancellation we can do. So we can factor out a 3 from there and there. So now we're left with 7 times 1 in our numerator, 3 times 4 in our denominator. So b equals 7/12. If we put that back into our original problem here, it would be 7/9 of 3/4 is 7/12. And lastly, what number is 3/8 of 320? So here we have what number, and this equation or statement is actually in a different order than what we've looked at before, but that's okay because we can just substitute in the things we know using the pattern that we know. So what number, let's call that a, there's our unknown, is, there's our equal sign, 3/8 of, there's our multiplication, 320. Okay, so now we can multiply here. There's some cancellation we can do. We can factor out an 8 between 320 and 8. So that would make that 1, and then that would be 40. 8 goes into 32 4 times, so 40. And then we can multiply. A would equal 3 times 40, which is 120. So plugging this back into our original statement, 120 is 3/8 of 320. Okay, here are your practice problems. Pause the video and work these out, and then press start when you're ready to check your answers. Okay, what fraction of 20 is 140? Again, we'll use our pattern. What fraction is our unknown? So we're going to put an F there for fraction. Multiplication for of 20. An equal sign, 140. Okay, now to isolate F, to get F by itself, we need to divide by 20. And what we do on one side, we need to do to the other. Sorry, that's a 0, not a 6. Okay, so then we're left with F equals 140 divided by 20 is 7. Next, 7/5 of what number is 3/8? So 7/5 of what number, there's our unknown, is 3/8. So to isolate A, we need to multiply by the reciprocal to cancel this out. So I'm going to multiply by 5/7, and then multiply by 5/7 on the other side of our equation. These will cancel out, and we'll be left with A equals 3 times 5 is 15, 8 times 7 is 56. So A equals 15/56. Lastly, 5/13 of 26 is what number? So put it into our pattern, 5/13 of 26 is what number? There's our unknown, there's our variable. And now we can do some cancellation here. Factor out a 13. And then we have 5 times 2 over 1, so 10. So B equals 10. In summary, just remember this pattern. The general pattern for a fractional equation is a fraction of a number is another number. F times A equals B. So then we would just substitute the pieces of the pattern that we know to solve for the unknown. And that's all for today. So go ahead and do problem set 48 and then read lesson 49 in your textbook. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time.